And I will declare the December 2021 meeting of the Maplewood Public Safety Committee open. Present tonight are all of our voting committee members, Committeeman DeLuca, Mayor McGehee, and myself. As usual, we are going to start with the fire department. We have a couple of folks here from the fire department. Are we starting with you, Chief Alvarez, or are we starting with someone else for the October monthly report?
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I was going to start. Deputy Chief Ariema is also on, just in case there was an issue or something that I didn't, information maybe I didn't have from prior, something I couldn't answer. So we, wanted to make sure that we had that clear cut coming across. So that's why he's on. And then Deputy Chief DeMartini is also on, just in case we have any other, questions that maybe I can't answer.
Okay. And,
right.
And Chief Alvarez, since this is, your first public safety committee meeting, at least, in this position, the way we'll start will be, to talk about the most recent monthly report, which will be, from the, not the most recent month that ended, but actually the month before that, because we'll get the October monthly report, which the Public Safety Committee will review before the meeting. So you don't need to take us through the whole report.
Okay.
But you or a member of your team can take us through the highlights from October. And then, after that, we'll get into the overtime and any other items on the agenda. But we'll start by walking through any highlights or anything you want to bring to our attention from October.
Okay. So again, I do apologize. It is my first meeting. So if I stumble a little bit, I do apologize about that. So myself and Deputy Chief Ariema did go over this today, and he kind of walked me through it. So for the month of October 2021, highlights, the fire department responded on 323 responses for emergencies, and 196 of them were for EMS. If you were to go down, obviously there were 2 COVID and 6 suspected COVID transports. And then obviously you guys can see that as we go down, there was a couple of fires. There was one with an investigation that was done in the boys' bathroom at the high school. It says that the New Jersey Division of Fire Safety was notified accordingly. That's something that we have to notify the division of. If there's any time that there's a fire in a school, they need to be notified of that within 24 hours of that fire. So that was done accordingly within that time frame. The other ones, you can see that there were 8 motor vehicle accidents and so forth. I mean, I don't think you want me to read down all of those. But the training hours for the month of September were 300 training hours that our members went through. They did go through required annual Osha required training, which consisted of the right to know, the bloodborne pathogens, and confined space refresher. That was all given to us for free through the PMA insurance providers for the township. So that was all done. Also, our members went through some hands-on training with sprinklers in our firehouse, which was also provided to us. The other things, we did hire a new firefighter. That firefighter EMT did start the academy. He is complete and he's on days now already. If you look in a report, it says that he should finish by December, early December. He is done. He passed all of his required training through the training academy. And he is working straight days right now with all of our shifts. So he's working out very well. So the next line I guess we can talk about is, are there any questions on that? I'm sorry.
No question.
Okay. So do we want to jump to overtime, or there's something that I wanted to bring up, I guess, to maybe crush some maybe what, people talking about the scanner feed for the township that goes out, that people can monitor on their phones or on their computers. Do you want me to talk about that now, or would you like me to talk about the overtime budget?
No, we'll follow the order of the agenda. So I think overtime is next, Chief. So
Okay.
why don't we talk about the overtime, and then we'll get to the scanner issue.
Okay, so the overtime, as you can see, for the month, it was 129,000. Total going up into that 779. Majority of that is due to the personal days, which are contractual, they're in there. People using those. Also, there was due to some sick and injuries. Obviously, we're not mentioning any members' names or anything of that nature, but we did have 10 members out. And those 10 members out were between FMLA, the COVID mandates. We had 6 out of the 10. There were 2 members that were injured, long-term injuries. They were out. And then there was 2 of them that were FMLA. So it was a total of 10, 6 due to the mandate, 2 due to long-term, and 2 due to FMLA. And then if you were to look at the comparison hours, if you look, the number went up from the prior month, which was 1,500 hours, to 1988, which for the year was a total of 1,194, 1.09 total hours of overtime for the year.
So I think just looking at these numbers and historical trends, we should expect and predict next month to be our highest month of overtime in the last 5 years.
Probably. And myself and Deputy Chief DeMartini actually, we've talked about this over the last couple of days. We're going to look at these, and we're going to, try to come up with some ideas. And I know, listen, the overtime for personal days, I mean, that's, it's kind of hard to tell somebody they can't take that day off. But again, we have to figure something out with that. And then, sick is sick and injured is injured. But I believe, and Deputy Chief Ariema might be able to even add to this if he wants to, that, right off the bat, I mean, there were 6 people, there was 10 people were out. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Chief, they were all from one shift, those 10?
Well, they weren't all from one shift. We had one shift was pretty heavy with the number of guys that were out. One of the other factors too is we were short a member. We had the recruit that was in the fire academy, so we were down a member, right off the bat there. But for December, we do have the 2 members back that were on FMLA, and but Mayor, you are correct. I think I don't know if it'll surpass this month, but it'll probably be very close to it.
Just and Deputy Chief, I was looking at the trends, and I changed the graph to go from 85 to 150, and it's the first month in a long time where the trajectory from October to November is going this way versus this way, then a hike. So yeah.
Yeah. So with the start of December, we did get 2 members back who were on who were out due to the vaccine mandate. Unfortunately, we did have another member go out long term. So it's kind of like we took 2 steps forward and 1 step back. So we still have 2 members out long term. One had major surgery with hip replacement. The other one had COVID, and he is still having the effects of it. So he's still out. We currently have 4 members that are out due to the vaccine mandate. So we still, starting with the month of December, we currently still have 4 members that are out just due to the vaccine mandate. So we got a couple guys back, but we're still short. As Chief Alvarez stated, the new recruit firefighter Mayor, he is done with the academy, but like the chief said, we're now doing in-house training with him. He's doing in-house training this week, and then he starts on shift on Monday. But basically for the month of December, he's going to be doing the 24s, but he's just going to be riding the ambulance because he has 0 EMS experience. So we just want to make sure that we train him right that way. So he's not going to be counted in the roll calls. So we're still going to be short one guy till the end of the year. So.
Yeah, just look at looking at the chart in terms of, I'm looking at the one in terms of dollars, the cost to the township. And, I knew 2021, coming in, because we extended some of the time from 2020 through the first half of the year, so that was, they had to use that by the end of June. And, but the 5 months since then have actually been the 5 highest months in terms of overtime costs in the last 5 years. I mean, literally the last 5 months have been the highest 5 months in the last 5 years, including 3, at, 6-figure months. So I mean, I think, this is just something that we'll have to, really think about. And, when I say we, I mean, I guess I'm not including myself in that, but, the folks who are going to be looking at the budget for 2022, are going to have to look at that because, I think, last year we certainly, it helped out. We spent less in overtime than I think we would have expected. But, this year, I think is exceeding anyone's expectations of, I think we knew it would be up from last year, but I think this is a lot higher up, and, based on, the projections Mayor McGehee referred to, we're probably looking at over $900,000 this year, most likely, or, if not very close to it, which is, more than double last year. So Chief, that'll be something, that you and your command staff and, and as you're meeting with Mr. Jimes and ultimately meeting with the township committee, to talk about next year's budget, we're going to have to, seriously look at that and, think about is that something that's going to continue and how are we going to address that and account for that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Committeeman DeLuca or Mayor McGehee, any other questions on the overtime or the October monthly?
None for me.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, Chief, is the radio scanner issues, and I know that this issue is really one that's been brought up with respect to the police department, but the knowledge of radios and scanners, and particularly on this issue, seems to reside more in the fire department than in the police department. So wanted to have you, Chief, address this issue, and it's a concern that's been raised by some residents of the police scanner used to be available online, or has been available online at certain times, wasn't available at other times, and questions about why that is and how that is, and whether that can be restored. And and it's a technical question that I know when we've talked about it during the police department portion of the meeting before, what we've heard from Chief Duvall and from Deputy Chief Sally is, the police department has never done anything to supply the feed, nor have they done anything to block the feed. So to the extent that sometimes there's a feed and sometimes there's not, nothing is going on at 1618 to either provide the feed or to stop the feed from being provided. So maybe you can shed some light on this for us and our residents.
Absolutely, sir. So you're 100% correct. The police department, the PD, had nothing to do with when it was out there, and it had nothing to do when it got turned off. What ended up happening was in the beginning years, guys were like, hey, listen, we don't live close enough to work, or when we're away, we want to be able to listen to our radio from home or on vacation, believe it or not. So, you could get the app on your phone, which is free, or you can, put it on your computer. The long and the short is our old frequency that we used to talk on, the old UHF frequency, we can get that on any scanner we wanted. There was no special scanner. And a PD, we just added them to it. So we were transmitting that through a computer from from fire station number 2. What ended up happening was when we went to the P25, a more reliable system, what ended up happening was we couldn't transmit that anymore, because you can buy a scanner that transmits it, but you're going to miss things. So the feed came down, and that was on our end, not the police end. What ended up happening was we then were able to they made a new little radio. It looks like a pager, like the old volunteer pagers. And that actually picks up our radio frequency, and it's crystal clear. So, and because people were asking why we weren't up and running, we got it up and running, and now ours is transmitting. That cannot transmit the VHF frequency that the police department currently operates on. So therefore, it's only transmitting the one. So it's us and South Orange Fire are being transmitted on the scanner feed as we see it. We can, with the right equipment, put the police back up if that's what the public wants, and I have no issues with that as long as the police chief is fine with it. And it's really just taking any scanner, because they're still using an old VHF frequency. Any scanner would be able to get that. They're not going to miss anything. There's no skips, so to speak. And what ends up happening is it's nothing but the cost of a computer tower under a desk with no monitor. We take and we just log into the radio reference, say that we want to put out another feed, and then we hook the scanner into the system. Once we do that, it pushes it out across the waves. So to clear the air, the police department had nothing to do with the radio feed even being put up, let alone it coming down. It was because the Maplewood Fire Department went to a more reliable radio system, which we asked you guys for. And again, the township committee, yourself, and the committee that's currently sitting today, you guys got us the best radios possible and put us on a much better system. Safety, you guys rocked it by doing that. The only problem is we can't put their scanner feed out unless we add something to the system. Meaning, and it's you're talking, a couple $100. It's whatever the scanner cost and a computer tower, and we just go online. There's no charge to put it online or nothing.
Okay, thanks, Chief. So, so the policy decision about whether to do that, and, and certainly the financial decision about whether to spend the money will be up to the township committee. But, while Chief Duvall is here, and particularly he just turned his camera on, I'll ask him to join here during the fire department portion and give us his thoughts on what he's just heard.
Well, first, I'd like to thank Chief Alvarez and invite him to my budget hearing, maybe 23, 24, where he could talk about my old system and how I need a new one. So thank you for that, Chief. And he's correct. He's correct that we have an old antiquated system, but any common scanner can broadcast. Nobody needs my permission, right? Any resident who wanted to buy a VHF scanner would have automatic access to the same frequency. So the fact that we may want to provide that service to the residents, if they had a scanner, it would be available to them anyway. So I have no objection.
Okay. All right. So, we now have the information. That's something the township committee, can consider. But Chief Alvarez, we appreciate the information, and Chief Duvall, we appreciate the transparency. And I think, this is something that we can take to the township committee. And unless Mayor or Committeeman DeLuca, you want to discuss anything now?
I'm good.
All right. So the next item on the agenda, the last item before, that's actually on the agenda before public comment, is consolidation updates. So either Mayor McGehee or Mr. DeLuca, if you wanted to provide an update on our consolidation talks with South Orange.
Sure. Thank you, Chairman. At this point, we actually have a draft of an agreement between the two municipalities, so a regional fire agreement. The elected officials will be meeting next week to iron out a few details. There's a few details remaining that we need to iron out. And after that, then we'll come together, the whole committee itself, to discuss it. And then from there, we will be ready to present a resolution. So we are very close. It's just the devils are in the details with a couple of factors. So we're getting close.
Okay, excellent. Before we take public comment, I'll just note that we have a closed session item that falls under the fire department, and that's the Public Safety Committee is going to be hearing a grievance appeal from the FMBA. We're going to do that at the end of the Public Safety Committee meeting, so after the police department portion of the meeting. So that's the public is not going to be that's closed session, but that'll be open to the Public Safety Committee, our administration, and then any representatives of the FMBA. Ms. Barnett, I think you'll be able to take care at that point to make sure that anyone who needs access as a panelist gets it, and everyone else doesn't have access either as a panelist or an attendee if they're not supposed to be here. But before we take public comment on the fire department portion of the agenda, Chief Alvarez, anything else that you want to address with the Public Safety Committee?
No, I would just like to, thank you for your service that you've given to the township. You've been great. You've been an asset to the township and the Public Safety Committee. And, I want to thank you personally, and I want to thank you from the fire department as a whole for doing an outstanding job over the last couple of years that you were on a committee.
Thank you. And I'm glad that Chief Ariema Deputy Chief Ariema, but former Acting Chief Ariema is here tonight too. Old habits die hard. This is my last meeting as chair, and coming up on the last few weeks of my tenure on the Township Committee. But the role that I have really been most proud of has been chairing the Township Public Safety Committee, and the opportunity to work with with our police department and our fire department. And I think we've done some really good things together in both departments over the last few years. And most of the credit for that goes to the leaders in those departments. So Chief Duvall is obviously on, and we're far from being done tonight with Chief Duvall. But as we're coming to the end, before Chief Alvarez and Deputy Chief Ariema sign off, I just wanted to say, what a pleasure it's been working with both of you as well as with your predecessors, both of whom I had the pleasure of spending some time with earlier this week. Former retired Chief Dinglestead and retired Chief Weber. And this has really been a fulfilling part of service for me. My thanks to you, and my thanks to the entire department. If neither the mayor or Mr. Luca have anything else, it seems like the mayor might before we go to public comment. So
thank you, Chairman Limbrick. I just want to recognize Deputy Chief Ariema for his work, for being just a class act. He stepped in as acting chief and just did a hell of a job. And I just want to recognize you, Deputy Chief, Acting Chief, for all your work and all your efforts in keeping our department afloat, when Chief Weber retired. And so I salute you, sir, and thank you for your service tenfold in that regard.
Thank you, Mayor. I am very thankful for the opportunity to have filled the role for the 5.5 months or so that I did. And I really appreciate it. I appreciate the confidence that you gave me, and the experience that I had. So, Mr. Lembrick, it was a pleasure working with you as well. Mr. DeLuca, same, to you as well, working with you. We're we're all on the same page, moving the department forward, and that's our main goal. And that's what we're looking to do. So thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Mr. Luke, anything else before we move to public comment?
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question about the ambulance service. When I was on vacation, I was reading a local paper and they were having a problem of meeting their expenses with EMS service. And they were talking about charging for services that are provided that are non-transport. And my question is, I don't remember if we've discussed this. I know we discussed transport, getting reimbursed for transport, but they were looking at coming up with some kind of scale of fees that, when you're treating someone and there is no transport, that we would get reimbursed for that. Have we ever looked at that?
Sir, I believe it might have happened. I'm sorry, my grandfather clock's ringing in the background. I believe that we've looked into that prior to. If Deputy Chief Ariema doesn't have that answer, I believe Deputy Chief DiMartini might have that answer because he's our EMS coordinator. So he might be able to shed some light on that, even if it's possible, because he's still a paramedic with University Hospital in Newark. So he still is very active in the EMS side. So do either one of you deputies have an answer to that for Mr. DeLuca?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so Mr. DeLuca, what you're talking about is billing for treatment post-refusal of medical services or medical attention, RMA. I believe that is possible. We'd have to look into it with our billing company. So if the ambulance were to respond, say for, somebody was they cut their arm, we treat them, and then they say, no, I don't want to go to the hospital. So we expended resources on that call. So we're looking to recuperate some of those resources. So I do believe that there is a mechanism to bill for those type of calls.
Mr. Jimes, do you know of anything like this?
I'm not aware of anything, to be honest with you, so I have to look into it.
Can we put this on, to evaluate this?
Yep. I just noticed also.
It's going to become a very big issue in the consolidation.
Yep. And I do have it right on here. No transport fee. I'll talk with Mr. Jimes and Deputy Chief DiMartini, and we'll get a good answer for you, sir.
Thank you. And I just want to say, Deputy Chief Ariema, thank you for your 5.5 months. I know you stepped in. And I just want to again point out that you were instrumental on the OEM side, filling out the FEMA requests. And we got a lot of money. So thank you. And continue to do it.
Thank you, Mr. Luke. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I think you have I remember with a couple of the people you hit it off with them. So that's important, that relationship building with the FEMA people.
And and I also just note that during his tenure, I'll always remember the tenure of Acting Chief Ariema for the way he led the department through Ida, which was I think one of the most harrowing nights our township has had, and the way that our first responders their heroism that night under Acting Chief Ariema's leadership it's something that I continue to be in awe of, and our town is very grateful for. So I think even though the tenure was less than 6 months, I think it was memorable, and some contributions that are going to stay with us for a while. So I know this isn't goodbye. You're going to remain with us, hopefully for a long time to come, but you have certainly my thanks as well. So I think we're now ready to move to public comment. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Barnett if any of our attendees, and just so our attendees know, this is only for public comment on the fire department. So if you have a question or comment for the fire chief or regarding the fire department, that would come now. And this is not for the police department, and this is also not for the closed session item, which is the appeal, the grievance appeal from the FMBA. So you can use the raise your hand function, and Ms. Barnett can convert you to a panelist.
I'm seeing no hands.
I'm not either. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close public comment. And with that, if no one else has anything else, Chief Alvarez, thank you very much. Your first night in the hot seat was my last night in the chair. So I'll hand you the torch, so to speak. I don't know who's going to be who's going to chair this meeting next month and going forward. The new township committee has to figure that out. But as I said before, it's been a pleasure, and I hope that we can continue working together. And you'll certainly. You'll certainly know where to find me, and I'll certainly know where to find you. So if you need anything, any sort of institutional memory or anything I can do to help the fire department, you certainly know where to find me, and don't hesitate to reach out.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And again, obviously as time goes on, this will be a little bit easier, but again, I can't thank you guys enough, and Mr. Lemberg, I can't thank you enough. So you're always part of the team, and thank you for everything. Is it okay if do we stay on, or you want us to log out?
That's true. You are certainly welcome to stay.
Okay.
And watch the police department portion. However, it's certainly not required nor expected. So if you want to log off and go and pursue other activities this evening, whether related to firefighting or otherwise, we will not be offended.
I just want you to know nothing burning behind me like the last time.
I know. And
okay.
Last time you didn't have to point out there was something burning behind you, because it was very clear.
Okay. You guys have a great night. Thank you.
Don't go far, Chief. Don't go far.
Okay, I'll stay on there. I'll hit mute. I'm on.
All right, thank you. So we're now going to move to the police department portion of the agenda. Chief Duvall, you're moving over to the hot seat now, and you know the drill. But we're gonna start by taking us through the highlights from the October monthly report. We obviously received the report from Debbie. We reviewed it, but any highlights or anything you want to call our attention to, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Lemberg. So first, I want to start with the UCR. I want to get the numbers out of the way. We are up for the month for auto theft, and that's just about everything. Year to date, we are still down just about 17%. With the numbers out of the way, we did have 2 armed robberies this month, and it's important to say that both of these incidents that involved people who are on foot in the very early morning hours, if you will. One was after 2 a.m., the other was after 4 a.m. It was individuals by themselves. One was in a car and the other was walking. It's important to mention this, Mr. Lembrick, because the numbers don't tell the whole story, as we've been talking about through this whole time. Both of these cases remain unsolved, and due to the circumstances, they're very difficult to solve cases like this. But we work very hard to solve them. Other than that, we had two aggravated assaults for the month, and they were both domestic violence related, and arrests were made in both of those cases. We had 2 burglaries. They were both to businesses. One was a abandoned property, that is the property off of Tuscan Road behind the residential areas over there down in between Boyden Avenue and Tuscan. And the other was a business on Irvington Avenue, where they broke in, tied a rope around an ATM machine and pulled it out with a truck. So there's not much we were gonna do with that. Larcenies or theft is even for the month, but fairly substantially down for the year, which is very optimistic. We continue to have problems with auto theft. It is the one area that is way up in the town, but it should be known and reported that if you look at the monthly report, some of our vehicles are being recovered as far down as Jackson, New Jersey. So this is a statewide trend. And why is that? Because 11 of our 13 vehicles were running and had their keys in them. Few of them were parked in driveways, but a majority of them were parked along Springfield Avenue or along major corridors. There was one particular case where there was a car stolen at the DCH, and that was just as simple as they were dropping it off for service, didn't shut it off, somebody jumped in and left. But as you can see from the report, most of these vehicles are being used as means of conveyance. And what I mean by that is it's opportunity. There are circumstances where they're used for other crimes, but that's not the norm. That's the exception to the norm. So as far, I'm going to jump to the juvenile restorative justice. We remain at 5 for the year. We are down considerably with regards to detainments of juveniles and arrests of juveniles. What I can tell you is if you see the numbers of juvenile arrests, they are predominantly related to auto theft. We have solved several incidents involving juveniles stealing cars over the past several months. So, Mr. Lembrick, that's what I have for the monthly report.
All right, Chief, as I was down at the League of Municipalities, last month, I had conversations with, a number of other people who, have positions or work on issues similar to what we do here. And it seemed that, I talked about, how the big thing that was up for us, was the auto theft. And I heard that, that was the same thing everyone was saying. And so, so it does seem, at least anecdotally, and are you hearing that from other chiefs, or it just seems like that's, this isn't just a Maplewood or even like an Essex County situation. This seems like a statewide that auto thefts just seem to be going up all over.
Yes, and there's a lot of reasons for that, and there are decisions that are made way above our head. But basically, state policy is that, and mostly for the right reasons. There is no pursuits allowed, so there's no pursuits allowed for a stolen vehicle. So unless you can get them in the vehicle stopped, you can't engage them for being in a stolen vehicle. And just the reality is a majority, probably 90% or greater, are used for joyriding. The thought that these cars are being shipped overseas nowadays, that is certainly not a trend that Maplewood Police Department is seeing. So there's a lot of factors that are involved in that. But I said early in my report, we have found cars literally all over the state, including for the monthly report. We've recovered one in Jackson, New Jersey, way down south.
Yeah. All right, Chief. And before we move on to the overtime or the community board on police, Mayor or Mr. DeLuca, any questions on the October monthly, the UCR crime trends or youth restorative justice?
Yes.
Okay.
Chief, last meeting, we talked about some of the changes that Walgreens implemented as far as putting some of their merchandise behind those plexiglass. And we talked about having your officers talk to CVS and 7-Eleven and Wawa about maybe taking a look at that. Has that occurred?
Yes, absolutely. And it continues to occur. Unfortunately, some of the businesses are finding out the hard way, particularly around Columbia High School as things sort of normalize over by Columbia, they're getting a lot more foot traffic. So they're doing different things as well. I assigned one of my crime prevention officers to walk through the businesses to encourage what they've been doing is pointing out certain items in the store that are better off. It may not be best for marketing, and I agree with that. You know, for marketing, you want things visible when you walk right in, but we also point out the fact that when you walk in and you see it, that's an attractive target. So we tell them to relocate them and get better, put them in areas where there's better surveillance, so that way internal staff can see. It's just giving out some tips. Again, you know, we don't want to be preachy because unfortunately, Mr. DeLuca, some of these places know all too well about the shoplifting happening. Although it is down for the year and it is down for the month, it's still happening, and they're making changes on their own to reduce the amount of loss.
And the other question I had or comment is, in looking at the stolen vehicle list and where they're stolen from, my guess, because they're at the convenience stores, Quick Check, Wawa, and 7-Elevens and others, is that these are not necessarily all Maplewood residents who are leaving their cars there. These are folks who are coming through town. Yeah, so I think the problem is our messaging has been to Maplewood residents about don't leave your keys in there, don't leave the car running. I think we ought to talk to particularly the Springfield Avenue Partnership about engaging the merchants and having the merchants put signs up that say, don't leave your car running, or maybe work with them to get some signage that you approve of. But because I think people just feel that, you know, they can pull up the Quick Check, they're just going to jump in and get something. They're going to go to that ATM machine in the Quick Check there. And in that split second, their car is gone.
Yep.
And
I
so
agree.
it's, you know, I think we're doing okay telling people not to leave their fobs in the car and not to leave it running, but we're getting hit at places that are, you know, places of interest for people who are coming through town.
We'll continue to address that. The bigger locations, particularly like Wawa, I don't think I have to tell anybody on this call the transient nature of what's happening at Wawa. It's almost impossible. It is very extremely difficult. The signs on the door are good, but they're stealing these cars right at the pump. I mean, there's a lot of things that are happening without people ever even going into the store. You know, but we're going to continue to do that.
Okay, thank you.
And this is, Mr. DeLuca, this is also the season, now that you mentioned it, that we'll be starting our Maplewood Against Crime initiatives, where we'll start leaving decoy vehicles out and shuffling them around to create an omnipresence to help try to reduce these things.
Great, thanks.
Mayor, anything from you?
No, I think that was a good point Mr. DeLuca made. Man, it's spot on. It's what I call a quick check.
So Chief, just you know, I don't think we'll have to spend a lot of time, and you know, this is great, and certainly hasn't always been the case. But looking at the overtime report is actually something I used to dread, and now I actually look forward to for the police department, because I see a lot of red, which is good. And just, you know, through 11 months of the year, we've got, you know, hours are down for police, overtime hours are down for watch commanders, down for dispatch. And, you know, even in a contract year where, you know, where our employees got a raise, our total salaries and overtime is up only a third of a single percentage point, you know, $23,000 spending this year over last. So, you know, I you know, maybe you're sick of hearing it by now, but, you know, Power Wednesdays and all the stuff that you talked us into a few years ago in terms of staffing, it's working.
You didn't believe me either. I told you to trust me.
I will admit I was skeptical, but you know, but I but I also told you when you got sworn in that I was gonna, I was gonna give you what you wanted, and I was gonna have faith. But yeah, you have proved it out. So I don't have any questions about the overtime. If my colleagues do, we can address it. But other than just to point out that the spend for this year from PD in terms of staffing, which is obviously the biggest area of cost for PD, which is the biggest area of cost for the township in terms of a department. It really helps to have a department that basically is coming in, flat with last year. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Luke, anything from you?
No, it's a good story. We're good.
The last item on the agenda before we move to public comment is Community Board on Police, and we have IO tonight from our Community Board on Police is here with us. Wanted to give him an opportunity to update us on some of the work the Community Board on Police is doing now as we come into a new year. And I know they're planning a community presentation for early next year. Rather than have me summarize what you're going to say, why don't I just let you say it?
Yeah, thanks for the invitation and appreciate being on. Hopefully you guys can hear me clearly. What we're doing, we're planning for 2022. Some of the things that we're working on is things that we're bringing from 2021 over to 2022 includes, the messaging that comes from the police department about, 911 calls that are, over calling 911, I guess is sort of the way to put it. So we're working on, presenting that to the public and to the residents about, how to do better with that. Other things that we're working on is also trying to, like, Greg said, Mr. Lambert said, is to go out and put out to the community that we are here and we're working and we're available to hear from the public, to also be a conduit from the public and Maplewood Police Department. So there are many steps to doing that, and we'll get started with that in the new year, and hopefully we spend some time with Chief Duvall if his schedule allows.
Of course.
Thank you.
And I know that was something that was discussed. Was Chief Duvall, we've had a lot of. You may recall that pre-COVID when the board first started up, everyone came into the police department, did a tour of 1618, and had the opportunity to do a ride along. And obviously during the pandemic, we suspended that. But we're hoping, maybe it may be too soon to restart the ride-alongs, but I think sometime early in 22 to have some of the new members be able to come into 1618, take a tour of the department, and maybe meet some people to get an inside look at how things work at headquarters would be valuable and something that we could probably do at this point.
Yes, that sounds good.
Yeah, we'll have, hopefully we'll have the opportunity to discuss with you the social work part of that we're, looking at, and also training, some way we can support MPD. And so we'll be scheduling some time, hopefully.
Mr. Lemberg, I'll have the update as well when the opportunity comes up.
Sorry?
I'll have a community board on police update as well.
All right, well, there's it's no time like the present, so why don't you go ahead?
Okay, so I met with Aaron about the IA portion, and so we discussed a few of the items that were brought up. We will be talking about scheduling tours and stuff and training. So one of the components, Jared, this is for you as well, is who would be doing their training. And I have confirmed that the only training that's been approved by the Attorney General at this point anyway is through the prosecutor's office. So I have made the connections. I have made the connections with the Community Board on Police with the prosecutor's office to arrange for that training.
Great. Anyone have anything else on the Community Board on Police? Seeing nothing, I think we'll move that. And Io, thank you very much for being here tonight and for reporting. Chief, before we take public comment, anything else that you would like to address with the Public Safety Committee?
I'll just get a couple of the housekeeping out of the way. As we know, the big dig, I'm going to call it, at Boyden and Mill has started. So the road closures are in place on Boyden Avenue, particularly down by Evelyn Court. I check it daily and have it checked that there's proper signage. We found circumstances where the detour routes have been either removed or not in place, but we're gonna make sure that we have those in place to reduce traffic. We did coordinate it with both Union Police and Irvington Police, because most of the spillover of the Van Ness Boyden closure is going down towards their town, so we have worked with them. The dig across the street from the fire department, we continue to work with Vollers. That's a water company project, and they have provided signs for the businesses. They're not great. They're not mounted great, so we're going to get them to fix that at this point due to weather. They're blowing over and such to let the travelers know that the road is closed to through traffic, but that the businesses are still open there. Other than that, Mr. Lemberg, I would just like to echo with what Chief Alvarez mentioned. I appreciate the time that we've got to work together. I'm glad that we have found a common respect for each other and an excellent working relationship. And I appreciate all the time that we've worked together. So thank you.
Absolutely, Chief. And and I'll have more to say. I'm planning some remarks. My report, just to give the mayor and Mr. DeLuca a heads up. My last report from elected official is probably gonna be a little longer than usual. And I'm going to have very nice things to say about a number of people, and you're certainly near the top of that list, if not at the top of that list, in terms of folks who I've really had. It's really been an honor to work with, and I think the work. I'd be hard pressed to say if there's anything that we've done on my 6 years in the Township Committee that's been as important and as impactful, at least that I've had a hand in, as the work we've done changing the culture in the police department and bringing about change, particularly, after the events of July 5th, 2016. And, no one has done more to lead those changes and bring about those changes than you have. And I know it hasn't been easy, and it's come with sacrifice and it's come with costs on your part.
And a lot of faith and trust, Mr. Lembrick. I mean, I asked for a lot of things.
You've earned it. You've certainly earned it, and you've repaid it in full and beyond. So I'll have more to say on that, but I appreciate your kind words tonight, and I certainly reciprocate your thanks. It's been wonderful working with you. And unless Mr. DeLuca or Mr. McGee has any questions for the chief, we'll move to public comment. But Mr. DeLuca?
I just have one thing, Chief.
Oh, boy.
This was the hit of the League of Municipalities.
Yes, sir.
It was. People stopped me and said, "Hey, we saw your police car, blah, blah, blah." It really was there. A lot of people wanted to, ask questions about it and things like that. So hats off to you for making that happen.
Mr. DeLuca, I've had people weekly come and visit that car. We had a town, I don't even remember what it was called, from way up north come down and look at the car today.
Yep.
I've literally stopped keeping track now.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I have to say, last Saturday, my daughter and I were both craving bagels. So we ran down to Bagel Chateau on Maplewood Avenue, and one of the cars, one of the new ones was was parked down there Maplewood Avenue. And I wasn't sure what was going on because I couldn't see it from a distance, but as soon as we got to the village, there was this crowd of people. And I wasn't sure whether there was a celebrity or something, but everyone was crowded around, everyone was taking pictures, everyone seemed very excited. And I wasn't sure whether it was, and I knew Santa Claus was on the other side of the village. So I knew it wasn't Santa Claus. But yeah, it was our new police car. So, it's one of the great photo ops in town right now is folks who want pictures of that car, and it's a celebrity in and of itself. So
I'll be asking for a brother or a sister too when the opportunity comes up.
Whole family. Yeah,
you'll have my vote, Chief. It's not worth anything, but you'll have it.
What was the name of the car with the TV show? Kit was the name of the car?
Kit, Knight Rider. Yeah.
Do you have a name for it, Chief?
Nah.
Maybe we should have a contest.
That would be good. That could be fun.
Ooh. I like that idea. It's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, yeah, definitely. And how to design the next one you approve next month.
Nice, well done.
Nice,
Chief.
smooth.
Veteran. Chief, I just for a second, I just want to thank the Chief for his work, recent events with handling and helping to collaborate to address the parking issue over at Columbia High School. Your efforts with your team has helped to mitigate that issue. We've been able to address it. So thank you and your team for that work there.
We work together, Mayor.
Yes.
That's why we're successful.
Yes, indeed. It was good work there. And then also to Sergeant Reeves and your team for also addressing the issue with Tuscan School and that issue too. So just 2 wins, and I appreciate your team and your effort on that.
Thank you.
All right, so I think we're ready for public comment. So anyone who wishes to make a comment or question regarding the police department, the chief is here, public safety committee is here, and raise your hand and Ms. Barnett can convert you to a panelist. Going once, going twice.
Come on, Fred.
I'm gonna, it's the first time I've ever seen the chief encouraging, taunting the public for comment. So I'm gonna go ahead and close the public comment, and I'm gonna take a motion to close the open portion of the Public Safety Committee meeting and go into closed session.
I'll move it.
All right. Moved by Mayor McGehee, seconded by Mr. DeLuca. We're gonna go ahead and close this meeting of the Maplewood Public Safety Committee, the open portion of the meeting, and move to closed session to hear a grievance appeal from the FMBA, from the Firefighters Union. So at this point, anyone, the only folks who should stay on should be the Public Safety Committee members and administration. The other folks should leave, and if they don't, Ms. Barnett, you should kick them out. So we'll give you a minute to say your goodbyes. Chief, thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate you very much.
All right. Io, thank you.
Fred Smith should be removed, correct?
He's not here for this. So yeah, Fred needs to go. Okay. The only person who I would have a question about is Chief Alvarez.
Yeah.
As management, I'm not sure he should be here for this.
No, I don't think he should be here.
I'm leaving right now. Take care. I'm sorry. I was just Mr. DeLuca. I was just sending you an email. You can see it. I'll send it to you. You'll get it in a couple seconds.
Okay.
All right. Thanks,
Good night,
Chief.
Good night.
Good night.
All right. So President Herbert, we're now in closed session. Thank you for joining us tonight. So we're here tonight as the Public Safety Committee as the next step in the grievance process to hear the grievance from the union. Just so you understand the procedure, tonight, the Public Safety Committee is going to listen to your presentation of the grievance. I am going to stop recording.